What if school leaders could harness the power of AI to streamline operations, enhance decision making, and improve student outcomes? Today's guest is doing just that.
Intentional and purposeful focus on building a culture of collaboration is the secret for leaders striving to make a difference. In building a culture of collaboration, Kurtis and Lorna Hewson will share simple tips, ideas, and strategies to take your organization's collaborative efforts to the next level.
Welcome to another episode of Building a Culture of Collaboration. I'm Lorna Hewson, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning.
And I'm Kurtis Hewson. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to be joined by Principal Mo, and you might see on the screen it shown as Ashley Moore, but we'll make that connection here for everyone soon. Ashley is an award-winning educator, leader, and nationally certified principal mentor with over 15 years of experience in teaching, special ed, and school administration. She has been recognized for her transformative leadership, receiving honors such as the 2020 Heart of the Schools Award and the 2024 Maryland Association of Elementary Schools Connected School Leader Award. Ashley has led innovative initiatives in accelerated learning, gifted and talented programming, arts integration, and STEM education. She's also at the forefront of integrating AI into school leadership, helping educators embrace technology as a catalyst for growth and equity. We can't wait to explore Ashley's insights on leadership, collaboration, and the future of education. So welcome to the podcast, Principal Mo.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's always fun when you get to do the formalized bio and you just get to sit there and nod, and it's a mouthful.
Yes, and it's like, whoa, all these things that, sometimes when you're in the work, you don't realize how much work you've actually done until you have to sit down and write it all out. And you're like, wow, I'm doing a little something in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that you're getting very well known for is the work of Principal Mo. So we would love to know, how did Principal Mo come to be, and what's brought you to the point that you're at in your leadership there, Ashley?
So the Mo is actually short for more. So I just took the other O-R-E off of my name. One time a student just called me Miss Mo. And I was trying to figure out what type of social media handle to use. And I was like, you know what? I'll just do Principal Mo. And then it stuck. So that was actually a student that called me that when I was an assistant principal. And so that has been my name for, I think, since like 2018, 2019.
Okay.
It's been around for a long time. And so I really started having a real social media and online presence, I want to say around like 2020, when everybody was like, on phones and on screens. And initially, my journey started with just bringing lightheartedness and humor to the principalship and just like everyday life of a principal. And then I started moving into exploring other areas of the principalship and like climate and culture and focusing on people who want to go into administration and interview tips. And we're just responding to people. And then I started really getting into artificial intelligence and using things like, ChatGPT and Notebook LM. And then it just like kept building and building and building until I realized that I could actually use this to leverage my leadership and actually make me a better leader in what I like to say, put the people over the paperwork and really use AI to get that paperwork out of the way so that I can really get to the people, which are, should be the focus of leadership, which is, your stakeholders.
Absolutely. I'm giggling a little bit with you get called something by a student and then it sticks. So as a principal, my last name's Hewson, but it's really close to Houston. And the kids used to think it was hilarious if I could come into a classroom and someone would announce, Houston, we have a problem. It just kept sticking. And then I would have little ones calling me Houston, because that's all they ever heard from their older brothers and sisters.
Right.
Funny how those things stick with
absolutely.
you.
Yes, they absolutely do.
Well, Ashley, it's really exciting to hear your work in artificial intelligence and that you really are at that place where you're really at the forefront of understanding how that can impact leadership.
Yeah.
How do you
Yes.
how do you see AI enhancing collaboration among educators and improving school operations?
And I love what you say of how can we use it to get rid of some of those tasks we have to do so that we can really get focused on our people, our teams, and the human capital that's in our buildings.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, and that's essentially like what I use it for. I feel like it's a counterintuitive way to put people first.
Yeah.
Which, some people don't think of it that way. They, some people think it's cheating, but I'm like, no, it's just having a tool with us. I liken AI to, and I don't know how old you are, but I remember when commercial internet became more widely available in your homes and in school and things like that. And I don't know if you remember all the librarians like being up in arms because they thought Ask Jeeves was going to take their job. When in reality now, librarians teach people how to use the internet. They use it to teach how to research and how to use the internet wisely and what it means to have your digital footprint in the world. So, I see it as that part of the great information age.
Yeah.
And so as an early adopter, I just was like, okay, well, I think I could just use this for certain things. And so how it started was with like basic communication, like emails and like letters, like what we call them here in the US, it's like lice letters, basically like information letters about either events that have occurred or things that have happened in the community, et cetera. But improving collaboration amongst educators, I could give an example of that. I've used it in collaborative planning. We've actually used it to unpack standards.
Yeah.
So then we're using it to unpack standards to understand how to understand what the standard is asking the student to do, what the demand is, what the rigorous demand is of that standard, and then scaffolding the steps to get that student to the highest level of performing and mastery of the standard, and then also creating questions and activities directly related to that standard. And so we were able to do that in a collaborative planning session or a professional learning community session. And the teachers are like, whoa, like I can literally get my planning done. So then that way I could focus on the delivery of the content. And so once I showed them that, they were hooked. And so what I like to call is stacking. I don't know. I don't really have a formal term for it yet. It's when you use one AI tool and then you take the information from one AI tool to use it in a different one. So, for example, if I took that information from unpacking a standard and then I copied it and then I put it into, let's say, gamma.ai, it actually creates presentations. So then you could take the information or the questions from the standard that were created using AI or using like ChatGPT or Gemini, either one of those to start.
Yeah.
And then you can put it in a gamma.ai and then you have your presentation for class.
Yeah.
So now you have your presentation of the content for class. So once again, removing some of that busy work from the daily work that we have to do as teachers and administrators, and really getting down to what matters most is not just the planning, but also the delivery of the content. And then also making sure that there's a clear connection between what's being taught in class, the content, and the standards.
Absolutely.
And marrying the three and making sure that it's accurate. So, but one of the biggest things with that is just making sure that it is accurate and going back and checking over things. You don't want to use it blindly. I think that sometimes that's what happens when people use AI. You always want to check and double check, but that's just one way. Like we're improving like lesson planning. We're improving, investigating our standards. We're improving standards alignment from standard to assessment to instruction and student work and student classwork. So those are just like two ways, and really it only took about maybe a 30-minute session. And so now when I'm going around in the classrooms, I'm seeing these things happen, which is really, really incredible.
Well, I think one of the keys there, Ashley, and thank you for sharing it. I know
Yeah.
there's going to be people listening and viewing that are anxiously writing down different tools and strategies. But I'm a huge believer, and in fact, it's purposeful why in our own organization we refer to
Mhm.
ourselves as lead learners because we want to be learning all the time, and especially in a principal role, if you can be modeling that for your
Yeah.
staff on an ongoing basis, it's one thing to say we're going to do a workshop on AI and then you go do it. But if you can be
Mhm.
showing, and here's how I'm using it in my role, and here's how we could do
Yeah.
this together, and why don't I come and join you and we'll help utilize some of these tools effectively. That modeling, I think, is huge. And again, we often talk about this in collaboration when we want teams to be vulnerable
Yeah.
with one another and trusting. But as a leader, you got to go first. You got to model that and
Right.
show that it's okay. So I
Thousand
mean,
percent.
if you're coming at it as an administrator, a little bit wary of the AI, of course, your staff are going to be
Mhm.
just as
But
fearful
Right.
of that as
actually
well.
demonstrating how to use it purposefully and knowing
Mhm.
that, like you said, saving time on that planning end, but giving more time to thoughtfulness in instructional practice and relationships with kids.
Mhm.
Right.
So
Absolutely right.
when you talk about helping your teachers utilize it in your collaborative planning and PLC work that is
Mhm.
happening, what are some ways that you're utilizing it from the principal perspective to take things off your plate so that you have time to be in the PLC? I mean, I'm sure there's somebody listening going,
Mhm.
man, I wish I had the time to go join my teachers in PLCs regularly, but I've got all this other
Yes.
stuff. What are some things that you've done to move the other stuff and get over the paperwork and back to the people? We'll be right back to continue this episode. We have all felt like this before when engaging in team meetings, feeling like our time is not being maximized or that this could have just been an email. As a leader, how can we ensure this is not the reality for everyone in the room? Rather than just simply coming together into a shared space, we really need to ensure that whenever we are engaging as a team in meetings, that the time is being utilized to its utmost and that we are truly seeing impact as a result of our conversations. My name is Kurtis Hewson, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning. In this free on-demand webinar, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 planning considerations and then 5 facilitation considerations that you can put into place as a leader to take your team meetings to the next level. Access this webinar, and in addition to these 10 considerations, numerous free resources will be shared that you can begin using immediately. I can't wait to have you join me to learn how we can ensure that team meetings are having their optimal impact. And now back to our conversation.
Right. So one of the biggest things that I've always used it for, I think it's just like communication pieces.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
As principals and school leaders, we write a lot, right?
Yeah.
We write a lot, and I didn't realize how much I've actually written until I went back and looked at every single newsletter that I've ever written. I've always done a weekly newsletter for the last 7 to 8 years, right?
Yeah.
So I've used that to rewrite some things, to edit some things, and then use it again. I've used it to create emails, like professional emails. I've used it to create memorandums. But one cool thing that I use it for, and some people didn't know that you could do this, is I use Notebook LM. So Notebook LM is an AI powered tool. And what you could do with Notebook LM is you can use it to upload like lengthy documents. So say like a policy or, like a regulation or something like that, something that we have to read, like, or the teacher contract. I use it for that too. And what you could actually do with it is you could upload it into Notebook LM, and then it can turn it into a podcast where 2 people are discussing the content of that document. So, like, say if you drive a lot or something like that, you can listen to it on your drives, like, to and from home. But what I like to use it for is to just get quick answers to questions. So, like, if you're a good administrator, if you're a good school leader, you usually have your teacher contract sitting right there on your desk so that you need to refer to it. at any time. And so for those who are listening, there are some, teachers and places in the US, I'm not sure about Canada, that have unions. And so there's typically a contract with those unions. And so say, for example, we have a teacher that says, well, this is what I'm entitled to according to the contract. Because what I found is that sometimes when people say according to the contract, it's loose, there's a loose interpretation of it and not what it actually is. And so what I've used Notebook LM for is to put that statement or to put that question into the inquiry or the prompt. And it's able to then answer the question based on the text and provide you with the actual excerpt of where they found it found the answer. So there's no more fingering through, or using Control Find on your computer to try to look for these buzzwords and things like that people are using for your teacher contract. So that's just one way that I've used it. Well, actually, I mentioned about 3 or 4 at this point. Another thing that I've done is I've actually used it to do some level of data analysis. So looking at data and creating visual representations of data. I've used it for that. And I at this point, I use it for so many things. It's like second nature at this point. But one good thing that I have used it for in terms of retention and teacher to boost teacher morale, I've actually used it to create culture calendars where it creates I'm like, okay, I would like to have maybe the month of March is March on or something like that. And I would like to have 30 days of nice things that I can do for teachers or 30 things that I can do to boost morale for teachers. And it gives me this calendar because how many times have we get so busy that the days pass by and you're like, oh man, I should have did this and I should have did that. And so then if you have a calendar, you can put everything on your, on your Outlook or your Google Calendar, whatever it is. And then you have something meaningful that you can do every day that you didn't have to just come up with off the top of your head. Because how many times do we have these roadblocks or we have writer's block or things like that? And then time has passed by and then you forget or you moved on to the next day and you moved on to something else. So it's just those little things that you can use AI for just to generate new and fresh ideas. And you can use AI as a thought partner, to maybe you're trying to do a master schedule. You can actually use AI to create a master schedule or even to investigate your master schedule to find holes, depending on how well you prompt it. Or, for example, if there's a plan that you would like to implement, you could put that plan into ChatGPT or Gemini and ask it, what are my blind spots? What are the obstacles that I'm going to face? So then that way, when you go into the implementation of any plan that you want to implement, and if it has that additional context, it can kind of tell you and help you think through some of those challenges that you may face with implementation and some of those blind spots. So, AI is just more than just a productivity tool. It's a really great thought partner as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's incredible. And you're using it in so many ways. The first thought that comes to my mind, though, is have you come across people who are quite fearful of using AI and how do you respond to that?
Well, and you even mentioned that it feels like it's cheating.
Yeah.
Right. So, the way that I look at AI, using AI is that I don't use AI for something that I've never done before myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm using AI for things that I've actually done by hand, I've done over the years, and because I know what it needs to look like and I know what that process already is. So just to be clear about that, I just don't use it for anything and I'm making things up as I go along. I've done data analysis before. I know how long it takes.
Yeah.
To get to the nitty gritty of next steps and things that and sometimes it comes up with ideas that I had never thought of before.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the best things about it is that sometimes when you talk about that thought partnering piece, you're able to get more from it than probably what you thought. But to address people who are scared, that, sometimes you just have to show people so they can believe it and make them believers. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I've done. But then I've also said, and going back to the information age, but also going back to social media. There are a lot of administrators, there's a lot of school leaders that don't really use social media that much. And so look at where social media has gone. It went from MySpace to this.
Yeah.
And, there's all these different platforms and things like that. And I know there's still some people who don't like social media and they don't want to use it. But what I tell them is that I don't think you can't escape something that's already here, and it's not going away.
No, not at all.
It's not going away. And it's better for you to be equipped with this than to be ill-equipped, and then people outpace you in whatever industry that you're in. So those are just some of the things that I say. But one of the biggest things that I do is I just show them how it can be used, because I feel like people think of it in the extremes of like iRobot.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And it's not that. And so, you just have to show people. And I think it just takes people who are just very curious, because I'm a very curious person. When it comes to AI, I ask it very random questions sometimes and different prompts. And then it's like, I wonder if it can do this. Let me try it and see what happens. So, I think that people just have to be exposed to it in a meaningful way, to truly understand what it is and how it can help you do whatever it is that you would like to do better, or help you think through things a little more.
Yeah. Absolutely. And most often I would say that fear comes from not having the understanding. So being able to really, have a chance to be able to see what it looks like or see what it can do is probably one of the steps that helps them to see that a little bit more clearly and get over that fear, right?
Absolutely. And even thinking about like the reasons why people say they don't want to use AI, they say it's going to make them less of a critical thinker. And what I think AI does, and it doesn't take away from your critical thinking, but it makes you do more critical inquiry.
Yeah.
And to create better questions and to create better prompts and to be curious, which is a part of learning, which is a part of being a critical thinker. Yeah. And so I think that people don't see it that way. They think it's just a shortcut, and you can get things done faster. And yes, it is a shortcut, but it's more than that if you use it the right way.
I want to share a little quick story about that idea of the thought partner. And then we do want to transition a bit, because we know that you're more than just the AI. We want to dig into some of your leadership perspectives as well. But we, in the work that we do around collaborative response, we talk about having opportunities for collaborative planning, PLCs, like you talk about. But then we also talk about another meeting structure where what happens is, as a teacher, I bring forth a student with a key issue. Other people in the room identify a student that has that key issue, and then we start focusing on the issue instead of let me tell you all about individual kid, and those conversations, how it can go.
Yeah, and it just is a bit session.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we say, all right, key issue, I was in one last week where the key issue, it was at an outreach school. It was getting modules completed on time. A fairly simple but very common challenge. And what we did is people then in our process start putting out ideas. Maybe we could try this. We could try this. In my classroom, I do this. And we don't judge any of the ideas. We just put them out for consideration. But we talked about, what if one of us, we have a role of a note taker, a role of a timekeeper. One of our roles was the AI agent. And it's the AI agent's job to put the prompt in. You're a master outreach teacher. You have a student that is not handing in assignments on time. What are 25 strategies that you could consider to help support the student? And boom, it provided a jumping off point for an idea where you'd look at someone going, and this is your critical thinking, where you go, nope, not a chance. That's not going to work. But my goodness, this idea, never would have thought of it without that quick generation of, it was like having 16 expert teachers in the room, just all boom, there you go.
Or it initiates an idea by the rest of the team, right? It's just a beginning place.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I just think you think of AI as an amplifier.
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
that's a
it's
great
just
way
the
to.
amplifier and its duplicity in ideas. It's just like, it helps you generate so many different solutions, at the end of the day. So
Absolutely.
it really is just like it's just an amplifier of, of thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, as mentioned, want to shift just a little bit. So, you've been recognized for exceptional leadership and ability to drive change, including the AI exploration and adoption. What advice would you give to leaders who are looking to build more collaborative and innovative teams within their school? We'll be right back to continue this episode. Are you meeting with your team in the hallway, staff room, conference room, or at the back of a classroom? We know that physical space is at a premium in most buildings. However, it is important to consider the impact that your meeting space has on the functioning and well-being of your team. Download our free Leader's Guide for planning spaces for collaboration. This guide will help to determine and plan for the best space for your teams, including considerations that contribute to effective meeting spaces, a checklist to be used when planning the space, and other additional resources. Access the guide at bit.ly/space checklist. That's bit.ly/space checklist, all one word. Get ready to ensure your meeting space is optimally configured to have the greatest impact possible for your next team meeting. And now back to our conversation.
Modeling. Like you said before, you have to be willing to model and be willing to take risks and show people that. And then also, in addition to being a critical thinker, also asking a lot of questions. So what I often say is that if we have a problem, the solution is somewhere here in the room.
Yeah.
We have so many talented people.
Oh, you're singing our song. Absolutely.
Yeah, so many talented people from all different walks of life, and somebody in here has the solution to a problem.
Yeah.
And so when you open it up to say that I am not the smartest person in the room, because I will always say that I'm not. But what I will say is that we have a team where it's a bunch of smart people and we can figure this out together. So I think when you present yourself as just the authoritarian leader, that's when you cause people to shrink, because essentially you're putting them in a box because you want them to do what you want them to do. Yeah. And you want people to get out of that box and maybe create some fences and some guidelines maybe, but not necessarily constricting people. And one thing that I always say about teachers, and I'm in an arts integration school, I have a whole team of creatives. They're my arts teachers. And leading arts teachers will teach you a lot about leading free thinkers. And because you think about like the kids that were into music in like high school, like they were usually like these misfit kids. It's like the group of misfit toys. Yeah. I'm not saying that all arts teachers are like that, but creatives are like that. They're very free. They're very open. So they had like their thoughts and ideas are very free flowing. They're risk takers. Yeah. They push the envelope. That's how they are. And so sometimes you need that on a team. Actually, you always need that on a team. And so what I've learned is that like if you try to like constrict and like give all these rules and guidelines and then you put these people in a box, they're going to fight the system. That's just how they are wired as creatives. And so I use that to apply to teachers, because teachers are creatives too in their own right. And so what I've learned is that if you allow people to be free and if you allow them to think, great things can come from it. It's when you constrict and restrict that, you get people who don't want to collaborate because they feel like that space is not there. So being vulnerable and creating that space where they can be free, and then also encouraging that collaboration in a very open way, I think is just how you get people to collaborate to start, to start. And so creating that culture of we can ask and answer questions and, and you don't have to look to the principal to solve the problem, because most likely there's somebody in the room that can besides
me. We often
that.
talk of the idea of, as a leader, set the banks of the river.
Yeah.
It's important to put some, you called them fences, so some structure
But
to
the
it,
structure.
but then don't try and micromanage the flow of the water. Let the water flow, and essentially let good people do good work. But we know without the banks, that good work can go all over the place. It sprawls and may not have the focus or intentionality that we want to be able to navigate, I guess.
Right.
And just creating those conditions for good people to do good work.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Ashley, with your experience mentoring principals, what strategies have you found that are most effective in helping school leaders to build that strong, connected school community?
So, in my experience with mentoring principals, I have noticed that, like, what's so funny is that I've noticed that they always have the answer, but they often stray away from it. And and one of the biggest things, like, with mentoring, is that you don't want to always give all the answers.
Yeah.
You want to listen, and you want to take everything in. You want to ask questions, and you want to push thinking by asking questions, and you want to gain context by asking questions. And a lot of times what I've found is that, like, leading with questioning often helps lead that person to the solution that they seek, or the actions that they need to take. And then once they come up with those actions, then we could talk about what that looks like, and then we can then thought partner together. What I don't like to do, and with teachers as well, is try to tell people, well, this is what you need to do, and this is how I did it, so this is how you need to do it too. It doesn't work like that. Every context and every situation is different, and as much as we want to talk about, like, quote, best practices, unquote, sometimes those best practices are not best for whatever situation that person may be in. And so while it may be a best practice for me, it may not be the best practice for them in the context of their school and the situation. So that's called, like, the push-pull method. So pushing people towards a solution if they need it, but then if they're kind of, like, dragging their feet, like, kind of pulling them along and, like, giving them those breadcrumbs along the way to get to the solution. So that is one of the biggest ways that, like, I mentor principals, especially around the arts, because that's mostly when I've been mentoring principals around, like, implementation of, like, arts integration, or or including more arts programming in their schools. And, the things that they've come up with have been really great. Like, and it's more than just, okay, we're going to do, like, a quilt or a mural. It's something that's more meaningful, like, where we're going to have, like, family engagement around art, or we're going to make sure that all students have art supplies at home so that they can create and be, expanding the access to art, which we know can sometimes be limited depending on the communities that you serve. So, those are just some of the ways that, with just mentoring and just helping people flourish and being that thought partner, being that open mind, and a great listener and a great questioner, I think, like, those are just the great ways of mentoring.
Yeah, I love the posing questions, always posing questions, because that really encourages them to think on their own. And like you said before, most often people have that answer or possibly that next step in their mind, but it's about being able to pull that from them and then create some confirmation for them too. But I love that. Let's just move through questions and that thought partnership. I love that idea too.
Well, and I really appreciate the being able to do that. But when you're talking about being in a team, in a room, being able to ask those questions and trying to elicit the thoughts and ideas of others. We had someone recently who had kind of joked that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Hello, but that's 1,000% true.
But there's some honesty to that. Of the room is always smarter than any one person in it. So how do we leverage that room effectively?
Right.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on an idea that we've been sharing and contemplating the last little while around
Mm-hmm.
the balance between teacher autonomy and collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we're actually believers that it's not an either or conversation. When we have teachers saying, well, I wish I could use my own professional judgment, and I wish that I could engage
Mm-hmm.
in the work I need to do back in my room, and I wish I had autonomy to do that. We're not saying no, we're taking that away because you have to collaborate. I'd love to hear your
Right.
perspective on how do we accomplish both? Because I think
Creating that
both
balance.
is critical. It's
Mm-hmm.
not an either or conversation, it's an and.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think you're absolutely right, because in order for people to take ownership of something, they have to own it.
Yeah.
And the only way that people can own something is to have their own autonomy over it. So, part of it is, creating that ownership. But then at the same time saying, okay, yeah, but we can own it together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that community piece is actually one of our school's core values, is community. And so one of the things that we talk about is that, we can push each other to, reach our highest potential. And that's the other core value of excellence. So even though we have, we want autonomy and we have our differences and we're our own people, but we are only as good as the people around us, number one. And then number two is that there are people around us to help us be better.
Yeah.
And so I think that I feel like it's just like when you have it informing each other. So like you said, it's not either or, it's definitely but it's not perfect and it's messy. And so what people don't like is for it to be messy, but there's no system, I don't think, that exists for that. And because it's an art.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not black and white. Sometimes it's gray. Sometimes it's eggshell. Sometimes it's, sometimes it's off white. And so sometimes you just have to navigate that. But I think having that clear vision about where you're going, your mission of how you're going to get there, are those vehicles that can help you with that collaboration and also that autonomy.
Well, and I think you're pointing towards too that our community is stronger through diversity. Right. And when we have diverse thinkers and people with different expertise levels and areas of expertise, man, that just makes us stronger together than if we were all trying to engage in the exact same way.
Right.
Well,
absolutely.
This has been absolutely fantastic. I think it's pretty easy for any of our listeners or viewers to know that to connect with you, just look for Principal Mo on social media channels.
Yeah.
Where else could people connect with you if wanting to learn more or to continue to learn from the great work you're doing, Ashley?
Oh, sure. So I do have a website. It's principalmo.com. So it is very easy to find me. My social media handles are all at principal_mo, on pretty much every social media platform that exists. And also I'm a co-host on the Rules to Engagement, which is it's a live audience educator TV show for and by educators. And so you'll catch me there. I'm on YouTube. That's powered by knowledge with a J. And that is the CEO is Principal Ra. And I don't know if you're familiar with Revolutionary Educator, familiar with his work. And so it's a show for and by educators. And so I'm there also, and that will be releasing on YouTube, I believe, April 19th. So that's also very exciting.
Okay, we're going to connect and get the link and make sure that's in the show notes here as well. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we want to be able to say thank you for the great work that you're doing, and just through the reach that you're getting. We always say we get into this to make a difference for kids, but when you can magnify your voice, that it could be making a difference for thousands and then millions of children, there's some huge power in that. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Principal Mo.
Thank you. That really does mean a lot. And I sometimes I don't think of it in that way. And so that just really like touched my heart. So thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you're doing and for allowing me to amplify my voice to other people and your listeners. So I really appreciate it.
Well,
Wonderful.
thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we've loved every minute.
Yeah, we hope this isn't the last time we chat.
I hope not either.
All right, take care. Okay, sometimes it's really interesting when you get to follow somebody and you've watched the TikToks and engaged in Instagram Reels and just you get to know a person and then you just get that next degree of depth when you get to have that conversation. So that was really wonderful and some key messages that were coming from Ashley or Principal Mo as she's branded herself.
Well, we're so lucky to be able to learn so much from these wonderful people who are making such a big difference to many, many schools, but to lots of teachers as well. One of the things that I adored that she brought up a couple of different times, first in relationship to the AI, but later in relationship to teams, and that is about having a thought partner. And just having that person or people that we can come together and really flesh out some of that thinking. Or
AI.
The AI
component to it too. Yeah.
I love that idea that, it's not just up to you to problem solve, to work through your issues and concerns, but actually you can engage someone else to be your thought partner.
And with that,
exciting.
Yeah, and it creates openness and connectedness when I know that I'm going to bounce some ideas off this person. They're going to share some things back. They're going to open up my thinking. I'm going to engage with ChatGPT around this is what I'm thinking. What challenges would you foresee? And again, it's not that we're doing that for someone to give us answers. We're doing it to help continue to mold our reflections and thoughts for us. I absolutely loved, and I hadn't thought about it this way, although we even do it all the time, of the idea of, yes, the AI saves time. It helps me write that email just a little quicker than I could before. It helps me take a look at some data. I mean, a simple one I've been using it for is whenever we work with teams, we try and co-create norms and we get into groups and engage in what are all the different norms. And then we put them all up on a Padlet. And then I would go back and synthesize what that was, probably take 15 minutes. But now I'm pumping that into AI. And it's taking me 2 minutes to give me a starting place to go from. But thinking about that from a leadership perspective of if I can save that much time on tasks, how much time do I have to be with my people? And with the teams and engaging. And when someone says, I find it so hard to get through all the things I have to do in order to do what I know is important with my teams, well, let's utilize a tool that can save that time so we can be in our classrooms with our teams. And like she said, getting to the work with the people.
Yeah, and AI saving us or giving us time so that we can focus on people who are
our teams
essential in the work that we do.
Yeah, and again, you hear this common theme of ownership of if I come in and dictate what it needs to look like. I love what she said of it'll put people in a box. And when people are in a box, what do? They fight to get out of the box.
Yeah, for sure.
But rather, how can we create ownership so that this is something I'm committed to as an individual, but then even further as a team member, and together we own it. We've done lots of work around co-creation and engagement so that it's owned by the team, not adopted from outside the team.
Yeah. And the other thing that she talked quite a bit about is in those mentorship situations, just really focusing on how do I create that relationship where I'm asking lots of questions so that it's pulling information from that other person and that it's not telling them what to do. And I have to say, I right away thought of a mentor I had years ago that actually spoke to the fact that as you work through problem-solving situations, being able to ask questions consistently and really bringing in another person or the team's thoughts about what you're moving forward on.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely encourage people, go check out principalmo.com. Ashley has a couple of free guides for specifically for principals on utilizing AI that speaks to some of the tools that she mentioned here today. She's right. Any social media platform, look for her to be able to connect. And as always, we just want to express our appreciation for our guests, but then also for listeners and viewers. We hope that actually that we can be a thought partner with you as you're engaging in some of these discussions. So please reach out if you have questions, comments, suggestions for guests. We'd love to be able to hear from you. Like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and continue to help amplify these messages that, as Ashley noted, of what we could do together to support success for all of our students and everyone in our organizations. So wishing you all the best. Take care, everyone.
See you soon.
Jigsaw Learning, founded by Kurtis and Lorna Hewson, is a team of educators who work with schools, districts, and educational leaders to establish collaborative response to ensure success for all students. Because every child deserves a team.